Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 32nd edition of Coffee with Ashish. And today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Rajesh Loomba from Eco Rent-A-Car. And, we have very briefly touched upon car in our last 31 sessions. And we all sort of agreed, you would recall in our earlier conversation, that car is an extremely integral component of any form of travel, whether it's corporate, retail, luxury. The moment you step out of your home for any kind of travel, car becomes the primary and sort of the last uh, end point of your travel. So in many ways, your memories of the entire trip are in many ways associated with how the car experience is. And we also talked about in some of our sessions that pre sort of Uber, Ola, and organized players like Eco Rent a Car came into picture, most of the travel, the car industry specifically was very fragmented, and the experience of travelers was very inconsistent and non-standardized. And it's only when aggregators and organized players like Eco came into the picture, the picture sort of evolved. But even with the use of technology, mobile apps, in terms of aggregating experience, still you would agree with me that there are immense number of challenges in terms of driver education, in terms of keeping the cars clean and hygienic, ensuring proper quality controls in place. And even with COVID, we're aware of how tricky it is now to ensure compliance and hygiene around both driver and car. And it's extremely difficult when you're talking about a scale of, 3, 4, 5,000 cars to the tune of what Eco works in. And, I have heard immense number of stories from a lot of people who are in this business in terms of how difficult it is. And even as end travelers, you and I and, and people on the call here have also experienced the product on a daily basis. And I'm sure you would recollect, the challenges around ensuring the car is on time, and all those funny stories around a driver who talks too much or who doesn't talk at all, who doesn't know the direction. So in order to capture, as always, I have got a couple of cartoons with which many of us might be able to relate to. On the left, you see, this is very common especially in corporate travel. Where you say we go the extra mile. That's something you don't want to hear a car operator say, that we go the extra mile. And on the bottom left is also something many of us have experienced in terms of not being able to find the driver on location at time. And by the time you just walk to the end point, and this is very true in Mumbai. I've experienced these situations where you can just walk in to the destination rather than giving direction to the driver. And on the right side is what the new norm is, which we're all aware of, and it's extremely difficult to ensure compliance to this extent at scale. And to talk about some of these experiences and how they are evolving now, we have got with us today Rajesh Loomba from Eco Rent a Car. And I was looking at the story of Eco Rent a Car, Rajesh, and I want to share it with everyone on the call. It's so inspiring. And I know, if you go back into the history, it was actually some of the initiatives which was taken by Rajesh's father, late Captain K.R. Loomba ji, who started in mid 70s, and with sort of one car. And then it was organized into a structured play in around 1996. And just in a matter of last 20 odd years or so, the company has grown amazingly fast, and it's like now present in 18 cities. They have more than 8,000 cars through affiliate partners. So it's a mix of own fleet and affiliate partner in over 80 cities. And the company has managed to be EBITDA positive. While we talk about Ola, Uber raising funding and incurring losses, here is one homegrown company which has managed to remain EBITDA positive for last 20 years, and they do close to 400 crores of revenues, and they operate in 6 different verticals. So they also do corporate car rentals, they do employee ETS related services, they do hotel travel, limousine desks, they do self-drive, they also do luxury cars and limousines, and also luxury vans and buses. And probably, Caravan Tourism is being projected to be the next big play. Maybe they'll add that as well in their, and probably RVs if parking is allowed in India. And it doesn't end there. I was also reading that the company is in the process of also raising funding. The company is also trying to dabble their hands into electric vehicles. So I think all in all, very interesting and inspiring story of a homegrown travel aggregator who managed to remain cash positive, been through this amazing journey of ups and downs. And I'm sure we will learn a lot from Rajesh. And this is not the first crisis which the company has faced, the macroeconomic crisis the company has faced. So I'm sure we'll learn a lot from him in terms of what are the future trends of car industry in India. So with this, a very warm welcome to you, Rajesh, to the show. And with this, I'm going to hand it over to Ashish to have a conversation with you while I sit back and enjoy my coffee.
Thanks, Karthik.
Okay. Rajesh, how's your coffee?
My cup of joe is my chai, my tea.
Chai. You're enjoying it too. Great. So, the car rental industry, of course, prior to 2000 or so, has always been an unorganized sector, as we call it. And of course, more efficient cars came in, and over a period of time, technologies evolved, etc. And suddenly, before you realize, while all that evolution was happening, COVID has hit us. So therefore, can you just quickly trace your own perspective from 1996 till all the evolution process and now COVID having hit home? Do you see changes in the business model going forward of the entire industry as such? Any tweaking to be done? And then we'll get on to specifics.
Yeah. So thanks, Karthik. Thanks for that nice introduction. And yeah, the company, as we all know, was started by my late father, who was an ex-army officer. In fact, our name ECO actually stands for Emergency Commission Officer. He was in the war with Pakistan in 1965. That's when he was commissioned.
All right.
And that's where he served. And he started this journey, like he said, very inspirational. By borrowing a car from a friend and starting to drive it himself, and bit by bit, organically, he grew it to a stage where we could use it as a platform to take it further. So 96, when we actually corporatized from a proprietorship to a private limited company, that was a time, just little post liberalization, which P.V. Narasimha Rao and Dr. Manmohan Singh had unleashed on the country, and we had a slew of corporates, multinationals coming in, and the demand for such services was going up. So that's where the upward curve actually started. Yes, since then we've seen a lot of ups and downs. For us, it was very clear that we are into mobility solutions. We are not only a car rental company. We are here focused on our corporate traveler and trying to lock in the relationship with the corporate traveler with all modes of transport that a corporate would need, and all ways to deliver it. Be it the corporate staying in the hotel and needs a car from there, their requirement for buses, the requirement for events, the requirement for self-drive, the requirement for which is the biggest segment, biggest two segments which are there, which is an executive travel or the employee transport, which where we offer the services of home pickup and drop. So the graph has been going up for us with God's grace, and the first dip we saw was in post 2001 9/11, and where of course all global travel came to a standstill for a few months, and because the most of our clients were also American companies, travel from there coming in, so we saw a big dip in the travel there. But we came out of it pretty quickly, actually, a couple of months, and we were out of it, right? Then the Lehman crisis that happened in 2008, that was another dip we saw in the corporate travel, in car rentals. But again, we were out of it soon. What's hit us now with COVID although we think we're pretty resilient. But yes, this is lasting longer than we expected, last longer than anybody ever thought. I don't think anybody could ever have predicted it. It's a classical black swan events that happen. But is the black swan going to become the new normal? We 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 all have to wait and watch and see.
Right. So, Rajesh, talking about corporate travel, and at the same time, the travel management companies also started evolving early 2000, post 9/11s. And you had a slew of these multinational companies which came into the country, bringing their own practices in managing corporate travel spends and savings and so on to the corporate community. But having said that, there is still a whole slew of unorganized sector there. I'm told about 32% of corporate travel management as such is only in the sector of the larger 6 or 7 companies, and the balance is scattered across the country. But there's a strange relationship I've always found between a car rental mobility company and a total travel management company, where as it stands today, at least prior to COVID, uh, the corporate would trust the ticketing and maybe perhaps to some extent the hotel booking into the hands of the travel management company. But the car rental stayed very predominantly with car rental suppliers. Although there have been cases, I know for a fact, who said, okay, we have chosen the car rental company. Now, will you just help us accept the bookings and service the customers on a fee or not on a fee? That's another matter. When now with COVID again, and cost being an important factor for corporates as well, you certainly can't hope to employ 5 people on the ticketing desk and 5 people on the car rental desk and so on and so forth. Do you see this one single contract which the industry has always been waiting for, which actually happened? And with, of course, technology playing a larger game in that?
Yes, so we've been supporting TMCs for a while now. I mean, we're working with almost all the large 6 to 7 TMCs that you mentioned, which have 32% of that corporate travel market.
Right.
Um, so the corporate, for a corporate, it's important for them to get in to the brand behind the car rentals. Because the final delivery is done by the brand. The promise is delivered by the brand. It's not delivered by the TMC as of now. So what we have seen is, yes, I think in 90% of the cases, the corporate decides which car rental company they're going to work with and ask the TMC to manage the day-to-day bookings. Um, and in some cases, even the billings to be routed through the TMCs. So there are 2 ways going ahead, which I see it happening. One, yes, TMCs, as part of their natural growth and getting into more segments, and cars is one of the segments where they do not have enough depth as of now, and they would definitely want to get deeper into it. They would take on the ownership and responsibility of managing car rentals also for the clients, and such products are being put in place. We have already integrated with most of the technologies that the TMCs are working with. So yes, and as far as trying to save costs on implants or um, it's not really such a big cost, because most places we do not have implants specifically for car rentals, and bookings are passed on either using technology or over email to our centralized reservation system, which even the TMC ends up doing. So yes, going ahead, there will be greater penetration by TMCs into the car rentals, I feel. And at the same time, there would be higher consolidation of car rental brands itself in the market.
Right.
Right. So corporates are looking for a one-stop solution for all their car rental needs. and not just in India, but we have a never increasing number of clients where we're giving them a global solution, where we provide cars not just pan India, but we provide all modes in terms of both chauffeur drive and self drive across the globe, thanks to our cooperation with Europe Car, where we have a co-branding agreement.
Right. So are we saying, I'll just deep dive into this brand business. Eco is a very established brand as far as transportation in India is concerned. Europe Car, of course, has its own branding across certain segments globally. So a combination of this, do you see that you may be able to attract a larger audience for the foreign business guy who comes into the country, where he will ask for it by name, and just as uh, the bidding for global accounts, Coca-Cola is done from Atlanta and it gets dispersed across all the TMCs. Do you think something like that may happen on the car rental industry as well?
Yeah, it's already happening. I mean, so we're already seeing that with some clients, and of course, the brand and the product has to be in place first. And with this, us and our relationship with Europcar, we're already seeing that happen now.
Right. So that would strengthen the TMC and your relationship, obviously, in a
Yes,
different perspective. Okay,
absolutely.
then we come back to COVID now, and we saw that little funny jest by Karthik about that screen and COVID and cash payments, etc. Now, I mean, humongously, you're in 18 cities, 9,000 cars, and then you have affiliate partners in 80 countries. How would Rajesh Loomba, who besides being a managing director, to me would be also the chief security officer or a chief safety officer, you know, in the current time with safety being luxury. Somebody actually said the new luxury is safety.
Absolutely.
And if that be so, how will you sit here on your CEO chair and manage that activity in Jamshedpur, Patna, or wherever else your affiliates are based?
No, absolutely. So the key is education and technology, right? So we've seen a lot of behavioral change happening in the last few months. Our focus has been to use this time uh, to drive this behavior change through our learning and development team, both on our frontline executives and our drivers, right? So yes, you're absolutely right. Safety is the new luxury. And if we are going to be delivering that luxury to our clients, we will have to change mindsets, build new capabilities within the system, which are able to develop and deliver that safety to our clients. Me sitting here on this on the chief driver's seat and making that promise would not mean anything if we do not have the processes and the technologies to back it up, to control it and monitor it. That yes, each and every car that goes is safe and secure for our customers, and at the very basic level, we do not end up uh, uh, infecting the next customer who comes in and sits in our car. That is the bottom line, and that is our biggest worry, and it should keep us awake at night.
Right. So let's come to this chief driver culture. I worked briefly with Sahara, where Mr. Subroto Roy himself called him the Karyakarta, chief Karyakarta of the organization. And that's the designation he used. And he used, of course, certain principles behind making that happen. So what is the culture and the principles you use behind using the nomenclature of chief driver? How does it filter down into the organization?
Uh, uh, my father started off as a driver, like I told you, right? And now, thanks to the platform he's created, I'm in the driver's seat to take this organization further. As a chief driver, the onus and the responsibility and the ownership uh, final, finally rests with me and my brother, who's the joint managing director. So when we take that responsibility and we take that ownership, we have to take it very, very seriously. Both from the point of view of the capability development of our drivers, their ability to deliver, and the ownership of delivering the entire experience to our customer as a brand, right from the time somebody thinks about booking a car till the time we bill them and they pay us. So the entire experience has to be driven, uh, and we are so lucky. We have been to have a great team which shares that same philosophy, that same culture, to be able to drive that on the ground and deliver it rental after rental. And I think the um, um, the our client satisfaction levels and our CSAT scores are testimony to that.
And we also know actually that the transportation laws in the country are pretty archaic. Many of them you will look back and say, you know, it was changed in 1953. We are still persisting with that. For example, people are talking about revival of domestic tourism being the first indicator when it comes to the tourism perspective. And here somebody said, you know, people will use self-drives to go, but there are only 10,000 self-drive cars technically registered across in the country, 30 stations. And then there is this practice that if you're registered either for a self-drive or you're registered either for a chauffeur drive. Now, if I'm paying my monthly EMI, why should I not have the liberty of deciding 6 months I will drive chauffeur and 6 months I will drive self, or whatever the case may be? So that flexibility and policies need to be changed by the government, as in many cases we have discovered while we've been engaging in conversation with people. Rajesh, what is your take? What would you like to tell the government in this industry?
So things are changing, albeit very slowly, but things are changing. The government has just come up with a national um, permit, for cars and buses, where you would not you pay a one-time tax for the entire year, and you would not need to pay at every border. Uh, Two, there's been a Supreme Court order last year wherein um, do not need a commercial driver's license to drive a car registered as a cab, which basically means that any cab can be given out for self-drive.
Okay.
So I think that would increase the total number of definitely. I mean, any operator can then give out his cab on self-drive also. There's no restriction as of now.
Or days of the week. I mean, weekend you are using a
Yeah, yeah,
self-drive in the week. Yeah,
absolutely. Whichever way now. So that's a big change. I think the market and the supply is still reacting and responding to it. Most operators are not familiar with self-drive. Um, they do not have the necessary insurances to cover the risk, the processes in place, etc. And when demand increases for self-drive, we will see that supply now also uh, coming in, because that supply, I believe, is available. And if any cab can be used as a self-drive, then you have a huge amount of supply for self-drive also. Uh, so the self-drive culture has not been there in India, but the market is growing, especially from the youngsters' point of view. And the new market, even for subscription services, which are short to medium term, which is a short to medium term lease basically of cars, is also now picking up.
right. So,
So COVID would lead to a lot of behavioral changes that we're seeing, right from domestic tourism, um, short uh, short distance travel would go up in the short to medium term, wherein people do not have to take and flights or trains, and can comfortably drive to such locations which are well connected by highways. That's what all the surveys are telling us. Right? So that should lead to an increase in self-drive cars, as long as the brands can convey that level of security, and people can feel secure renting a self-drive car, that proper sanitization has been done.
right.
If we cannot do that, people will still prefer to take their own cars and drive only.
Obviously with all the navigation equipment and technologies guiding the driver uh, to across the circuit. But coming back, and it's a question which may not be necessarily to eco, but a question to a leader like you. The tourism part of the car vertical is more unorganized than the corporate travel, obviously because corporates have their own
Mm-hmm.
demand and you put technology in place. I do firmly believe that there is a lot of necessity there to put all the navigation equipments, the maps, the GPSs, and whatever else you wish to put in, which you put it in for a corporate travel, into a holiday space as well, to make and nurture the demand, foster the demand, and make the experience more meaningful for a holiday maker. Do you see that happening? Do you see organized players getting into that, or it will remain the local Chandigarh transporter who will take you to Himachal?
So it will lead to a consolidation. People would want to trust brands more. Frankly, navigation is not really a concern now. Every phone is a navigation device, and we all navigate by Google Maps all the time. So we really do not need to put um, the tom-toms and garments that we used to work with earlier.
Right.
And so you just take your phone and you can navigate anywhere in the country today, right? Um, the key is the feeling of what is going to differentiate between the local players and a brand like us would be the promise and the ability to deliver on that promise. you know and like you said, the biggest luxury today is safety, and so the promise hinges mainly on safety.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a sector which I think is waiting to be evolved for sure.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
and somebody who was an aspirant in Caravan, Karthik mentioned about Caravan. He said, look, I can put a few caravans. All I need is the hotels to give me a parking space at night, right? An electricity connection and food for my guests. They'll stay in the caravan, but they can. And hotels, I've noticed now, are more than willing to do that because they're selling something. So do you think that may be leading to something happening there? Because earlier, whenever anybody talked about caravan tourism, you said, but where the facility to park? Where can you? Now the hotel spaces are getting converted into parking spaces. Do you see that
So
going forward?
you mean renting a caravan?
Yeah. Do you see that segment
I,
growing in
I
India?
don't, I'm sorry, I do not see much of traction happening in that space. There is virtually no caravan supply in the country.
Hmm.
Very, it's not really you know worth talking about because the numbers are so less. B, if I were to rent a car, even a caravan, my concerns would still be the same, which is, how secure is this from the sanitation point of view? It would be same as going and staying in a hotel. If I am going to be going and parking it in a hotel, my concern with my caravan that I'm renting would be same as the hotel, because the hotel will also need to sanitize its room, and a caravan operator will also need to sanitize his caravan before
Right.
any rental. And beyond that, beyond the parking, you need a lot more. You need um, plugins for the sewage for the caravan, the electricity. A lot of infrastructure needs to be there. And in Europe, America, where caravan and RV travel is very popular, because you have so much infrastructure in terms of um, uh, caravan parks, wherein you can just go and plug in and be staying in your caravan for days together, which is completely lacking here in India as of today.
Right. Perhaps a thought for the government to build it upon certain circuits, at least, of course, not across the
Yeah,
country, but
certain
certain.
circuits, they'll have to create the infrastructure. Infrastructure will come before people make investments, any major investments into caravans. If the infrastructure isn't there, the investments will not come.
Lastly, do you see Indians now? I go to the outbound market. Do you see
Right.
Indians booking their cars overseas, be it self-drive, chauffeur drive, whatever? Obviously, self-driving being an important aspect, right from the source market in India, or you still see them going abroad and booking it directly, whichever way they do it currently.
No, so Indians always, I think 90% of the bookings happen in India itself before people travel out, and which has been our experience over the last 1 year with Europcar. It's just that they were probably going and booking directly on the car rental sites, but they definitely feel much more secure. And Indians being a high touch market, they feel more comfortable talking to somebody while making the booking, and knowing that there's somebody they can reach out to you if something were to go wrong. So absolutely, the bookings. If the if the availability is there within India for a customer to touch a supplier, that is definitely an advantage.
So maybe going forward, that can be another revenue point for growth in the Indian
Yeah,
market.
we already have that. We already been doing that last 1.5 years
Right.
post our agreement.
Europe, well, thank you for the moment. Any parting thought before we move and take you to Karthik to conclude?
Well, we look forward to when we can all actually and psychologically feel safe enough to travel and fulfill the wanderlust that is there inherent in every human being.
Thank you. And I'm sure a company like yours and leader like you will keep contributing to the growth of the India story forward. Thank you, Rajesh. Over to you, Karthik.
Thanks, Ashish.
Uh, Great listening to you, Rajesh. I just have one question to ask from you. I know a lot of people who talk to me and they are into either tech play or they pre-COVID at least they were trying to do a lot of innovations around analyzing driving behaviors, using onboard diagnostics and all those kind of initiatives. Now a lot of people are also talking about creating apps for creating scenic motorways because driving holidays are going to be a new trend. What is your message for some of those startups who are trying to do a tech play in the car industry? Because there is also a school of thought that post consolidation aggregation with the Ubers and Olas of the world, there is a very limited tech play as such. I mean, you can optimize your processes as such, but generally from an end traveler perspective, there is only a limit to what you can do. So what are your thoughts? Do you think that's the case? You're already matured in terms of the end traveler technology, or do you think there are still some interesting ideas for startups to build on? Or maybe are you collaborating with startups in any of these ways where they provide you some of those interesting solutions and you integrate it with your entire value chain?
Yeah, we are talking to a couple of startups and in providing um, certain value additions to the technology that we already have. But we also have a very mature technology infrastructure in terms of big players like MapMyIndia or Google already there, and with constant enhancements on their app, on the navigation apps, on the searches, on the way that they can predict your travel behavior and requirements. But you never you can never write off any new innovation that are exciting and talented tech people can come up with to enhance the experience for the travelers and encourage them to go out and travel more um, with both aspects of safety, making it more interesting, making it more convenient. So we are all. That's what the entire tech revolution and the app revolution has been over the last few years. That however well entrenched any ecosystem may be, it's the innovation and the bright spark that comes. Uh, so you don't know, so you have to keep working in it, and you have to keep evolving, and keep trying on new things, and some things would get adapted and some things would not.
Great. So on that positive, encouraging note by Rajesh, we are at the end of today's session. Thank you so much again, Rajesh, for taking your time. I know it was a tight squeeze for you within your schedule, so really appreciate it. And thanks, Ashish, as always, for being our host. Thanks everyone for joining in, and we'll see you on Thursday with Apurva of Rate Game. Till then, stay safe. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks,
Rajesh.
Karthik. Thanks, Ashish.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.